To the final sample question number 1. Like the first one, this also involves a class you've really never seen before. It's a little bit wacky. I don't know what I was thinking when I made this up. But there's a class called window. And again, you would have never known what the methods are in this class, but it's one that I just invented for this question. So in part A, we are looking for a method called is the biggest window dirty? This is very much our kind of championship who holds the belt algorithm strategy. We're going to basically loop through all the windows, find the biggest window, and then see whether it's dirty or not. I'm going to do this one actually a few different ways because I think it's so important you kind of see all 3 ways. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say keep track of how big is the biggest window. So I'll say int window, or I'll say big minutes. We're measuring the windows really in minutes, right? How long it takes for them to get washed. Look in this, we're in the class called window washing drone. We have one private instance variable that's an array list called windows of window. So I'm going to say windows.get0. That's the first window. Again, windows is an array list. Windows.get0 is one window. When I put this dot here, I can use any of the window methods. And now I'm back up here. The one I need is one called get washing time. So I'm going to say get washing time. That's the size of the 0th window. Now I'm going to loop through another one and see if I can find one that's bigger. So int I equals 1. Could put 0 there, but 1's a little better. I is less than windows.size, I++. If I find a bigger window, so get used to this pattern. Windows is an array list. Dot get I is one window. Dot get washing time is a method of the window class. So windows is an array list. Dot get I is one window. Dot get washing time is the washing time for the ith window. If that is greater than this big minutes variable, then I've got a new champion, right? And the new champion is big minutes equals, and that would be exactly what I have here, the window washing time of the ith one. Okay? And now I'm keeping track of the biggest minutes I've seen so far. So now at the end, when I'm done, I can just say return, we got one big problem. What we're trying to return is not the size of the biggest one or the minutes of the biggest one, but whether the biggest one is dirty or not. I don't think with what I've got here, all I've been keeping track of as I loop through this is just the size of the biggest one. I have no idea whether the biggest one I found was actually dirty or not. Several different solutions. Let me kind of just present one right now. I'm going to make a new variable, Boolean big dirty. This is true or false, is the big one dirty? So that's going to be windows.get0 dot, and then what other window method do I have? Oh, it's called needs washing. Needs washing. This is the truthfulness or falseness of whether this window is actually dirty or not. Then down here, when I find a new champion, I better say big dirty is equal to windows.getI.needs washing. So now I'm keeping track of 2 bits of information. I'm keeping track of both the size of it in minutes and whether or not it's dirty. And then down here, what I want to return is actually the thing I've been keeping track of, which is big dirty. Okay? That is one possible solution. I'll show you the whole thing right here in one screen. Okay? This is the solution where I keep track of 2 bits of information. I thought I would actually show you 2 other alternate solutions that would be totally valid, that do the exact same thing in slightly different ways. So I'm just going to do some cutting and pasting here and just do some tinkering here. So now this is the second solution. It's totally valid also. This time, rather than keeping track of 2 bits of information, I'm actually just going to keep track of 1 bit of information, but that's going to be the window itself. So what I'm going to say here is windows.get0, windows is an array list, get0 is the first window. So here I declared a variable called big that is of type window. Again, a little bit uncomfortable that you can declare a variable of a type you've never seen before, but that's exactly what I just did. So now down here I don't have big minutes anymore, but big is a window, so I could say dot get washing time. This says, is the ith window's washing time greater than the biggest window's washing time? And if it is, I don't have big dirty anymore. I can just say big equals windows.getI. I'm keeping track of the entire window itself. And then down here I could say big.get, needs washing. So in the first example, I kept track of 2 bits of information, the number and the Boolean. Here I'm keeping track of the window itself. I don't know which one you like better. Most students tend to do it this way. I think this makes more sense to them. But this way totally would work as well. This question really forces you to keep track of which type you're on. Okay. A third solution to part A, I'm going to do a little cut and copy pasting here, is to not keep track of the 2 bits of information like I did the first time, also not keeping track of just the window itself. Now I'm going to keep track of just a position. So I'm going to say big index equals not the window itself, but where it actually is in the array list, and that's just 0. So now here, when I find something, I'm going to say big index is equal to where I am in the list, which is just I. But then this changes to Windows. I'm going to have to go on 2 lines here. Windows dot get big index dot get washing time, and that's what's going to go here too. So let's kind of keep track of this. So here I just keep track of a number. The biggest window I've seen so far is that position or index 0. Then I say if the ith one is bigger than the washing time of the one at the big index, then the biggest index is where I am in the list, which is just I. And at the end I return whether the big index one needs washing. So 3 different solutions. You can keep track of 2 bits of information. You can keep track of 1 bit of information that is the window itself. Or you can keep track of just the index where it is in the list. All 3 valid solutions to part A of this. Okay? Let's go ahead and take a look at part B, which actually, I'll make this a little bit bigger. I might as well use all my screen. Part B is, yes, part B is right down here. This is this crazy one called wash windows. Now the drone is actually washing all of the windows until it runs out of fuel. This one I think is actually one of the hardest things of all the 3 practice problems I've given you, because you're keeping track of a whole bunch of things. You're keeping track of A, are you looping through the fuel of the drone? Or are you looping through the windows? Which one of those things are you looping through? You're sort of actually looping through both. So don't get mixed up on this one. Like, do you need a for loop going through the windows? Do you need a for loop going through the fuel? Ultimately, you're done looping when you run out of fuel. So I'm going to make a variable called int fuel. I'm just going to set it to be fuel time. Probably don't need to do this. I could probably just use fuel time. This is how much fuel the drone currently has. That's what fuel means. And I'm going to say while fuel is greater than 0. I'm doing this one with a while loop because it's not like we're doing something a set number of times. It really depends how much fuel there is. We're going to need some other variables as well, but let me just see if I can kind of start this. Okay? We're starting at the starting window, but that's going to change a little bit which window we're on. So I'm going to say int current window is equal to starting window. And that might change. Current window is going to change as we kind of go through. So now let's see, is the current window dirty? Do I need to wash the current window? So if windows is an array list, dot get, which window do I want? That's the current window. You're seeing all my typos. Then if that needs washing, then guess what? I want to wash it. I can wash it by saying windows.get current window. Then there's a method, I think there's a window method, isn't there, called wash? Let's make sure about that. Where's my window methods? Here it is. There's 3 window methods: needs washing, get washing time, and actually wash it itself. So this actually, if I just put wash there, that washes the window. Now, that's going to take some time. So fuel, this variable fuel, goes down, minus equals, by the time it would take to wash that window. Windows.get current window dot get washing time. Okay. Then the question, I think, also asked me to keep track of just the number of windows I've washed. So I think I need another variable here, int num washed. It's just going to start at 0. And then down here, now that I've washed the window, I'm going to say num washed plus plus. Okay, I'm going to make this a little bigger because the next thing we have to deal with is, okay, there's the whole thing. So this is pretty good. I'm going to eventually run out of fuel, but notice current window starts at starting window, and I never change it. It's not like you get an I++ for free in a for loop or anything. So I think what I need to say here is I got to now go on to the next window, whether or not I washed this window or not. There's no else going on here. It's just no matter what, I'm going on to the next window. So I go on to the next window by saying current window plus plus. Current window is just which window I'm on. That'll work most of the time. The one wrinkle, though, is, of course, when you reach the end of the last window, you need to wrap back to the beginning. The first window is number 0. So if current window equals, now if you were on the last one, let's say there's 10 windows. If you were on the 9th one, which is the last one, if there's 10 windows, they go 0 through 9. So if you were on the 9th one, you just plus plus, you'd be on the 10th one, which is windows.size. Then you want to say current window equals 0. So this is saying if you just go to the next one, but if that pushes you one beyond where you want to be, then just wrap around. This is all happening in a while loop, and eventually you'll run out of fuel because of this fuel minus equals. And what the question then says is return the number of windows you washed, which is return num washed. And I think this actually is the complete solution to this question part B. Okay, some tricky parts here. Having to keep track of the current window, I think, is a really tricky part. Okay, because you're kind of looping, you're really looping through the fuel rather than the windows. Okay, and then make sure you just subtract to the fuel here. And then this other tricky part is you have to manually increase which window you on and manually kind of handle the wrapping around. And I'll put that solution key up on Schoology. Thank you so much.